Kevin, I'm so glad that you're here because, lots of times I do these technology things and it's like what we could do, but nobody's actually done it. It's really cool that you're actually doing it. I just wanted to take, a few minutes and have you just share a little bit of these questions. First of all, maybe talk a little bit about Deutsche Bank and sort of your strategy and philosophy towards this and what led you to do this. And we'll kind of just go through these questions about what it's like out there on the frontier.
Thanks, Steve. Listening to all of this and cycling back 6 to 8 months, right? So listen, we were challenged, we work across a number of jurisdictions in the US, right? And then we are, of course, are international. And so we were all sharing our experiences about how to apply controls to meet some of the statutory requirements. And in some cases, of course, internationally, and as you get into the Asia, that's more of a government forward program than it is a private program. But here in the US, we quickly found that we were overwhelmed to keep up. Which jurisdiction was changing the requirements? Where did we have to evidence? What did we have to evidence? And then with respect to case tracking and contact tracing, as the chart went up on the upswing there, the volume was just overwhelming too. So, we were losing a lot of man hours and people were getting exhausted with just trying to maintain what we consider the new BAU, right? We have been partners with Alert for many years. We were using their physical identity access provisioning to manage our estate globally. So we have a number of access control systems from different providers, and that helps us bring everything together, right? And manages it from an automated standpoint, right? So when we had heard about this tool through some conversations we were having, it quickly became an idea for us because we knew how overwhelmed we were. Just trying to collect that information manually, through DocuSign or emails or whatever tools we were using, even having people challenge staff as they came in the lobby of the building, which could get quite expensive if you have to maintain that, right? Across many facilities, right? And we're largely a 24/7 shop too, just because of the nature of our international business. And then just running the building itself. Through some quick proof of concept, we found that the entry screening, as we call it in our domain, tool, Guardian Access Lite, provided in the health and safety module that bolts on to the enterprise tool, helped us get there quickly. And we were challenged with just the hours staff were coming in. So no one really works 9 to 5. And the frequency that they do, and they would leave for a few hours and then come back in. And how do we manage that? Do we let them back in the building after they left? So we put a UAT up, so to speak, right? Or just a quick access light tool, as we called it at the time. Just get some feedback from staff, and we had full support of our leadership team in the region because earlier in the COVID response, we have a crisis management framework like most large international companies. And so that team quickly came together, which our group is part of, to try and figure out the response for the event. And then the operational hurdles that this introduced to us across all of our sites. We wanted to make people feel safe.
Can you explain exactly from an employee perspective what they're going through? Because you said you used to actually have people physically challenge you when you walk in, are you, screening? So how does it actually play out if I'm an employee at Deutsche Bank? How's this changed my experience?
When we were doing it manually, the thing we found quickly was when people went out for lunch, we had no way of knowing that this wasn't their first time back in the building. So we were using literally little dots to put on their ID cards to say, oh, you cleared already for today. And then we had a queue line. We only had a few people challenging people in the lobby. And so we had a queue line. So that would take X amount of time for people to get through. So when we introduced the application, they're able to do that from home on their way to work. If they forget, in the lobby, because the response from the submit to the enablement of your ID is 60 seconds or less. So there was no real latency for the staff anymore. So that was a big positive for them.
And this is all done on their mobile device?
Largely. We have 85 to 90% of staff doing it from the mobile device. We have a few people who actually log on through remote connectivity to do it. It's really user habit, but I would say 90% plus use their mobile phone to complete the attestation or the survey.
So the one other sort of question on this, so you talk about the employee experience. So basically now I just on my phone, it keeps track of it. It gives me access if I have access. It's just much easier, much more frictionless. Right. What about on the facilities management, security management stuff now? what is the data that you have now that you didn't have before? Because the nice thing is you can get immediate control. If somebody doesn't pass screening, they don't have access. So that's
Right, which was key for us, right? That was a
Right.
big thing. Like most companies, we were bringing staff back in phases. I mean, staff were trying to get into the building earlier than their phase started. So
Right.
allowed us to apply that control. If you weren't on phase 2 list, you weren't part of the application program, so you actually couldn't use your badge to get through a turnstile, which was rather helpful for us because in some locations we don't have security manning our lobbies. We're able to keep a lockdown on the facility without any breach to our statutory requirement that's local within that region. So the data it provided us was when we did experience staff who were on site that became positive, we were quickly able to, and to the points before, it's not only California where you have to have a 24-hour response, in other jurisdictions you have to have that too. So we were able to quickly identify those people through their swipes about close proximity. People typically sit in one seat, right? But they tend to travel around floor to floor too. So it wasn't about who was on the floor of the individual, but more importantly, where did that individual go to throughout his day and who was near that person while he was on that floor. It allowed us to target contact tracing and identify the close contacts and have them be quarantined in a rather efficient manner.
I would love to dive more into this because I think we've just scratched the surface of what you're able to do with this data, it sounds like.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. With respects to mobile phones, the way the tool works is when you pass, or you're identified as no risk, you get a QR code onto your mobile phone. For me, and what I'm talking to them about now is I would love to use that QR clearance now to enable the person to pass through my card reader and my turnstiles because that's the clearance. There's no really reason I need to have them to have their card. The clearance is on their phone.
And I just think about when we're going to, as you said, this place where people aren't working 9 to 5 regular office, we're going to have a lot more
Yeah.
variety in space. And when you throw in contractors and temporary workers,
Right. It's a big task to manage.